We always talk about the then they fight you stage, and we always talk about the increasing encroachment of government policy regarding free speech and what this means. Well, guess what, guys? Over the weekend, we got a huge wake-up call, and we need to talk about what happened here with Telegram. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you had a great weekend. I know that the weekend was not wonderful for everyone because, as many people know on Twitter, right, the CEO of Telegram, Pavel Durov, was arrested in France at the airport. Now, of course, everybody can weigh in on the reasons for the arrest, whether they are justified, they're not justified. But I got to tell you, based on the information that we're seeing, it just looks much more like he was just somebody that wasn't part of the good old boys club. And it seems that his platform was allowing a little too much free speech. So here we go. Let's dive into it. Let's see what the mainstream media had to say about why Pavel was arrested in France. They're saying he let his platform turn into a playground for all sorts of criminal activity, money laundering, drug deals, sharing disgusting content involving kids, and even cyberbullying. It's all on the list. Now, of course, spoken about this many times. In no way, shape, or form should anybody condone or encourage the behavior of, we'll call it CP, right? Because that's essentially the acronym that we can use. And the reality is that there is no universe where that type of stuff is justified. And what people need to realize, though, and this is the key to how we can get people on our side, is that even if there was no actual CP, okay, it doesn't make a difference. It's the fact that there could have been, there may be, and that the platform is being used for that. Now, granted, okay, there are many platforms, unfortunately, that get used for this indirectly, and they are not necessarily penalized. So is it really about that, or is it just an excuse in order to encroach on somebody's freedom and possibly shut down their platform and or silence them? In no way, shape, or form am I a Vitalik Buterin fanboy, but guess what? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Here we go. I've criticized Telegram before for not being serious with encryption, but this charge, it just looks like they're going after them for not playing ball with data sharing. That's a scary place to be for software and communication freedom in Europe. And guess what? He's not wrong. The charge against Pavel seems less about any specific crime and more about Telegram's refusal to hand over data. And that's right, guys. This is the key, right? This is one of the keys. So when you are not compliant, then you become publicly shamed, ridiculed, and humiliated. And this is done on purpose in order to remove the value of whatever it is you have to say. It's a term that I like to use. I call it othering, right? This is what happens. You become othered, and then all of a sudden your opinion just doesn't mean as much because there's a certain lens that your opinion is now being seen through based on the muddied waters. And for example, right, let's say you throw in a pile of mud into the water, pile of dirt into the water. So what happens before that dirt finally settles, right? You can't see through the water. It's not clear. It's dirty. It's very, very simple. And then what happens? The water finally, the dirt settles to the bottom, and then you can see clearly. But that is the whole point. The whole point is to get you, me, us to make time-sensitive decisions, okay, before the water gets clear and we understand what it is that we're looking at. Anyways, it looks like Vitalik wasn't the only one who chimed in on this. Elon Musk had some words. So As you may know, he had been publicly backing Pavel and tweeting "Free Pavel." Another tweet from Elon read, POV, right? Point of view. It's 2030 in Europe and you're being executed for liking a meme. Now, what's really scary about this is that back in 2022, we can see right here, a UK man was arrested for malicious communications after posting a meme mocking the transgender flag. And of course, right, obviously, again, this goes back to the whole thing. I don't condone any of this behavior. I'm not for or against any of this behavior. But the point is that the censorship of free speech is a slippery slope. Once we begin to censor, all that happens is that the goalposts move, and we continue to censor more and more and more until there's nothing left for us to say. We have no words. That's what scares me. There's a great tweet from BTC Gandalf which really illustrates what's going on here. Let's take a look at it. The reason for Pavel Durov's arrest, according to the BBC, is reportedly about a lack of moderators, with Mr. Durov accused of failing to take steps to curb criminal uses of Telegram. Here's a cryptocurrency investment scam happening right now on YouTube. When will the YouTube executives failing to keep steps to curb criminal uses of its platform be arrested? And look, I really can't disagree with BTC Gandalf here. I can say from my experience creating content on YouTube, when any video becomes big enough, right? Essentially, there's a whole entire bot army that YouTube can't, for whatever reason, can't and doesn't stop, which sits there and essentially shills absolute garbage, right? They're shilling scams. Now, Daniel's tweet, BTC Gandalf, who also just came out and doxed himself, his name is Daniel. His tweet is referencing specifically a fake Michael Saylor video. And this is something that we've seen on YouTube: fake Michael Saylor videos, fake Jack Dorsey videos, fake Elon Musk videos, all of them shilling you phony tokens, right? Every single one of them trying to steal your money. And yet YouTube doesn't get shut down. That is so strange. I don't understand. The platform has clearly, and think about it. I make content on YouTube, right? So you'd be sitting there being like, Phil, you're an idiot. You know, if they shut down YouTube, your content goes away too. Well, I just want to be fair, right? I mean, if everybody else is allowed to be censored for having a platform which supposedly facilitates this behavior, then why isn't it rules for everyone? Why is it only rules for thee and not for me? And that is the truth of the matter. So there is all kinds of malicious, terrible content on YouTube, and yet YouTube doesn't get shut down. How come? It's really, really strange. Now, one of the arguments against Telegram is that Pavel Durov's platform was facilitating money laundering. Now, we all kind of have to ask ourselves a really interesting question, right? And I think it's valid. We have evidence repeatedly from banks like Goldman Sachs, right? Where we could see here, there was a $2.7 billion bribery and money laundering scheme. Why is Goldman Sachs allowed to continue to do business? JP Morgan had the same problem as well. Why are they allowed to continue to do business? Why is it that they can just pay a fine? Why aren't the CEOs of these companies like Telegram being arrested? Huh? Why aren't they being arrested? Why is it only these platforms that are being arrested? It's because they're not in the club. Pavel isn't in the club. He didn't kiss the ring. Okay? He's not part of that special elite group that gets to dictate how other people's lives are ruined and how their lives get to be pedestaled, right? Raised, right? Rules for thee, not for me. One last tweet here. This is from the, I believe it's the CEO of Rumble. Yeah, that's right. He is the CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovski, and here's what he said. China bans Rumble. France threatens Rumble, we leave. Brazil threatens Rumble, we leave. UK threatens Rumble. Russia bans Rumble. New Zealand threatens Rumble. France arrests Telegram CEO. free speech is under a major assault, and I will not stop fighting for it. And right below that, Elon Musk responded back and said, very worrying. Now, I can't disagree. It is indeed worrying. And of course, the big question is, what can we do about this? Now, we need to be honest about certain things to begin with. Centralized platforms, which are owned and operated by corporations, are central choke points. Okay? That's just the way it works. YouTube is a central choke point for content. Twitter, central choke point for content. Now, indeed, we see that Elon Musk seems to be an advocate for free speech. Granted, I don't know that we've seen the full weight of the state upon him yet. I unfortunately think we may end up seeing that if he continues to voice his actual opinion and not the opinion that has been drilled into him. So we'll have to see what happens there. So look, what options do we really have? People used to think that Telegram was secure, but if you do some digging into it, Telegram never had encryption by default. I don't, in all fairness, I'm not even sure where the narrative of Telegram being secure even came from. So the other thing that people said is, oh, well, you should be using Signal. Okay. Signal, I feel like there's like a bit of it's a bit of a mixed bag. I know that they tried to shill some shitcoin token, which again, I know it doesn't necessarily mean that they're evil and all that stuff, but there does seem to be some interesting rumors around who started Signal and that there may be backdoors into their encryption and blah blah blah. Okay, so what are we left with, right? What are we really left with? We're left with NOSTR. And you guys, for the people who know me, you know that I make fun of NOSTR all the time. In particular, I find it funny that people come onto Twitter and they tell you how amazing NOSTR is. I'm sorry. I think it's ridiculous. It's like, hey, look how amazing this place is. That's why I'm here in this other place that has the audience telling you about it. And of course, I know I'm being an ass, right? Like, I understand that, you're essentially, you're coming to the place where everybody is to tell them like, hey, this other place is also really good too, and here are the features. Now, I do think that NOSTR does have a future. I do believe that somebody is going to build the killer app client for it. I know that right now a lot of people really like Primal for NOSTR. The only thing I want to caution people is this, right? Let's say we have an app that gets developed, unless it stays completely free and open source, right? There may be a company that is built around it, right? Because that app may be able, this is kind of the piece to it, right? Is that when you have a successful product, people want to pay you, right? It's a way of saying, hey, look, like I appreciate the value that you've created and I'm willing to pay you. I want to pay you for this value. And then this is where we get into a bit of a slippery slope, because people are then incentivized to create a business around this idea. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. This is what we do, right? We create businesses. If we are able to create a product and or service that is of value to people and we are able to make a living from it, then quite oftentimes we do that. And what worries me, which is nothing special, just very obvious stuff, is that these are going to become corporations. Then these corporations can then be hampered by the government and then be shut down because they are central points of failure. So I got to say that unfortunately, it does kind of seem as though for the individual going forward, this idea of being able to retain all of the monetary benefits behind creating a service or a product, I don't really know how long that stays into the future if our primary focus is free speech and personal freedom. I don't know. It gets very interesting and it gets kind of complicated. I don't know what the answers are to that. No one wins with censorship. Everybody eventually becomes stifled, and then the only voice is the state.